I'd like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's presentation of Understanding Your Loggers Benefits. My name is Elizabeth Altoff. I am a Public Relations Specialist here at Missouri Loggers. And before we begin this afternoon, I know we've got a few people still checking in with us. Just to go over a few little housekeeping items. For those of you who have never sat in on one of our webinars before, we like to keep these presentations fairly informal. Like to keep an open dialogue, and so if you want to ask questions as you go, I encourage you to use your GoToMeeting toolbox that should be on the right-hand side of your screen. You can chat questions to me there during the presentation. I do monitor those as we go, and I will do my best to answer them as we go. And if I don't have time to get to a question during the presentation, I will make sure that I follow up with you either by phone call or email following today's presentation. So I really encourage everybody to use that feature of your toolbar. I definitely think it fosters a more productive conversation for you. Today we are going to look at a slightly different take on a presentation that we've been doing for several years here in the Loggers office, which is our Loggers 101 presentation. And if you've ever sat in on that one before, basically the 101 presentation is a top-to-bottom look at the entire Loggers program that we condense into about an hour conversation. But what I found with that particular presentation is that for individuals especially who don't have a lot of exposure to loggers, it can be a lot of information and a lot of detail at first touch. So I am really excited about today's discussion, where we're going to step back from some of those details that we look at in that presentation, and we're going to focus on the bigger loggers picture. And at the end of today, what I want is for you to leave with a good sense of what loggers' retirement benefits are and what their value really is to you as an employee. Now, like I said, that 101 presentation does have that higher level of detail, so if it is something that you're looking for, feel free to check that presentation out on our webinars page at www.mologgers.org. If you go to our webinars page down at the bottom of that screen, we do have a recorded webinar library, and you can view any of those presentations. This presentation will be available there today at the conclusion of this afternoon. And you can view those at any time 24/7. Those are another resource for you as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our discussion today. And I like to start with the most basic of questions: who are Loggers members? As a Loggers member, you find yourself among roughly 40,000 public employees who represent over 650 local government entities from across the state of Missouri. Loggers only provides our retirement, survivor, and disability benefits to local government employees within the state of Missouri. We're located here centrally in Jeff City. And sometimes, because I think of our location, people tend to think that we are part of a state agency. That is not true. We are separate from the state of Missouri, both legally and fiscally. But we are here nonetheless in Jeff City. And if you ever need to call our office with questions or anything like that, you do know that you will always be talking to somebody here locally within the state. And we really pride ourselves on the level of customer service that we can provide our members because of this. So again, please, if you ever do have questions about anything concerning your Loggers benefits, don't hesitate to give us a call here in our office. The benefit that you are now earning through Loggers is a tremendous benefit and tool, really, that you can use to help build a secure and protected retirement plan. And here over the next half hour to 45 minutes, we're going to talk in general about how this benefit works and how it should fit into your greater retirement picture. So we're going to kind of go through all of these things here in just a minute. But I want to start with one of the biggest misconceptions. I like to address this right up front especially for those who are not familiar with how the plan works. I have found that one of the biggest misconceptions about the LAGERS plan is how the very basic structure of a defined benefit works. And I found that a lot of folks are readily familiar with how a 401k or an IRA works, and they tend to assume that LAGERS is somehow going to work in a similar way, and it really doesn't. Something like a 401k, or I know a lot of you as public employees have access to a 457 plan. These are what we call deferred contribution plans. And what this means is that an employee is deferring a certain amount of their salary into an account with their name on it, and the benefit that they will have at retirement depends on the balance or how much they've accrued within that account. So if you've been diligent with your savings and you've hopefully had some good investment returns, let's just say, for example, you've put away $500,000 into a plan like a 457. When you retire, and you begin withdrawing funds out of that account, once you've withdrawn your balance, so in our example $500,000, the benefit is exhausted. And so what you want to do with these sorts of plans especially is to make sure that you have a strategy in place so that you are depleting those funds in a manner in which you won't outlive them, because you certainly don't want to get halfway through retirement and run out of money. So again, these plans are based on that account balance that you accrue in those accounts. A defined benefit, on the other hand, which is what LAGERS is, they don't work this way. They are not based on account balances. Rather, benefits that our members receive are based on a formula that takes into account how long you've worked and how much you've earned during your career. So the longer you work and the more you make, the greater your monthly benefit will be in retirement. And that benefit is payable every month for as long as you live. So here are a couple more things to kind of keep in mind about the defined benefit structure like LAGERS. Number one, using the formula, and we're going to look at this formula in a little more detail here in just a second. But number one, based on this formula, you receive a guaranteed and protected lifetime benefit. So it doesn't matter whether you live 5 years into retirement or 50 years into retirement. You get your LAGERS check every month for as long as you live. The second thing about your LAGERS benefit is that it's not affected by swings in the market. And again, we're going to look at this formula right here in more detail in just a second. But like I said, it's based on how much you make and how long you work. And there's nothing in this formula that talks about investment return. That's because investment returns don't impact your monthly benefits. So let's say, for example, you've worked for 30 years for your employer, and 6 months before you're planning to retire, we have another 08-09 market downturn. Your LAGERS benefit is in no way affected by this. Your 30 years that you've earned in this example, based on the benefit calculation, your benefit is payable every month for as long as you live, regardless of those swings. So that's a really great thing to have. We're going to talk about the extended benefit of that here in just a little while. So instead of having an individual investment account like you might with a 457, for example, or any other sort of deferred compensation plan, LAGERS pulls together all of our employee contributions, and our team of professional investors goes out and does that investing for you. And they are very good at what they do. We're really excited here in the LAGERS office. We just closed our books on our year, and we're coming in right around 19% for our one-year investment returns. So that's obviously great news for our members and employers alike. But what this means for you is it really does save you, as far as your LAGERS benefit is concerned, from having to worry about negotiating those fees, picking the right fund, rebalancing your portfolio. You don't have to do any of that with your LAGERS. So these really are the essential differences. If you don't take anything else away from today, I would encourage you just to remember this kind of difference in how the plans work, that it really doesn't matter how much you pay into loggers or how much your employer pays in. It's based on this formula. And again, we're going to look at the formula in more detail here in just a second. But it's designed to encourage employees to stay with their employers, earn that service credit, and as you earn service credit in loggers, your benefit grows every month. Before we jump into actually looking at the formula and looking at how we calculate a benefit, which I know that's something that everybody wants to know, how much money am I going to get in retirement, there are two things with a defined benefit structure like loggers that you have to do in order to become eligible to even receive that monthly lifetime benefit. The first thing that you have to do is what we call vesting. And vesting just means that you have to meet a minimum service requirement with a logger's employer in order to be eligible for these benefits. So for loggers' purposes, vesting happens once you have earned a minimum of 60 months of service in the logger system. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we have over 650 employers across the state of Missouri, and as an employee, you can work for any combination of loggers' employers and earn service towards your vesting. So you could work for one employer for 2.5 years and then go work for the logger's employer down the road for another 2.5 years. And in total, you've got your 60 months, your 5 years of service, and you are vested in the program at that point. Once you become vested, the second requirement that you have to meet is to reach a retirement age. So our normal retirement ages for general employees would be age 60, and then for our police and firefighters, it's age 55. So once you're vested and once you have reached this retirement age, you are then eligible for full unreduced benefits from loggers. We also have, as far as the retirement ages are concerned, an option that every member can use that allows a member to retire up to 5 years early of whatever their normal retirement age is. So for general employees, up to age 55. For police and fire, it'd be up to age 50, where you can retire early with reduced benefits. And that's something that each of you can elect individually to do if that's something that's right for you. But you do have that option available, just to keep in mind if ever you chose to want to draw your benefit early. Now, one thing that's really unique about the loggers program is we have, like I said, 650 plus members across the state, and each of those members has the option, each of those employers has the option to elect a specific set of benefits. Some employers may have chosen to add what we call the Rule of 80. And what the Rule of 80 is it's an early retirement provision that would allow an employee to retire when their age and service credit total the number 80 with full unreduced benefits. And so for some folks, this may mean that they can retire earlier than 60 or 55, whichever age you have, with unreduced benefits. Now again, I want to emphasize that every employer in the logger system has different benefits. So this will definitely be something you want to check with your employer to see if this is an election that they provide for you. I do know we have some employers on the line with us today that do provide this option, so I kind of quickly want to run through a couple examples of how this works and how this is a benefit for you that do have it. So let's say, for an example, that we have an individual who starts working at age 24 for their employer, and they stay and they work with that employer. They dedicate 28 years of their career to this employer. So after 28 years, they would be 52 years old with 28 years of service. And as you can see, 52 and 28 total the number 80. For full unreduced retirement benefits, provided they're vested, which they obviously are with 28 years of service, at age 52. Okay? So let's look at one more example here. Let's say I started working 10 years later in my career, so at age 34. And I worked for 23 years. I would be 57 years old with 23 years of service. 57 plus 23 totals the number 80. So this individual would be eligible for full unreduced benefits at age 57. So if I'm a general employee, 57 is still younger than my normal retirement age. But what happens if I was, for example, a firefighter whose normal retirement age is 55, and my Rule of 80 age isn't going to be until 57? The Rule of 80 is designed to attract employees at a young age and encourage those employees to stay with their employer for the long haul with that added incentive that they are able to retire sooner than they would have otherwise. And because of this and the way that it's designed, your age at hire will really determine whether or not the Rule of 80 is going to benefit you. And I want to emphasize that the Rule of 80 cannot harm anybody. So in this example, the second example that we looked at, if I was a firefighter and this was my Rule of 80 age, 57, I could still retire with full benefits at 55. That's my normal retirement age. I can absolutely retire at that age. So the Rule of 80 doesn't help me in that case, but it doesn't hurt me either. So any police or firefighter who starts working after the age of 30 will actually hit their normal retirement age prior to the Rule of 80 age. So again, doesn't help, but doesn't hurt either. The same is true for general employees whose retirement age is 60. If I was a general employee in this example, it obviously is still a benefit to me. I can take full benefits at 57. If I were hired at age 40 or after as a general employee, this same kind of situation would apply. I would actually hit my normal retirement age before my Rule of 80 age. So it wouldn't necessarily be a benefit to me. But again, there's no penalty for starting later and not having that Rule of 80 age. Just means I'll have to work until my normal retirement age. So again, that's kind of what this first bullet point is addressing. Doesn't affect the amount of the benefit, only when you're eligible to begin drawing it. Now here's something that's really important for those of you who have the Rule of 80 and are interested in being eligible to use it one of these days. You are only eligible for this benefit if you go directly from working into retirement. So let's say I'm a general employee and I'm 55 years old and my Rule of 80 age is 57. If I quit my employer at 55, I can't begin drawing full unreduced benefits at 57 just because that's what my Rule of 80 age is. I would have to work up until age 57 and go directly from working into retirement in order to be able to use this provision. Now I certainly could just take an early retirement if I wanted to with the reduction in place. We have another webinar that talks about all of these retirement timing issues as you're planning for retirement, so I would encourage you to check out our webinar page to if you're interested in attending that webinar. But again, just keep in mind with the Rule of 80, you have to go straight from working into retirement for that to apply. And again, this doesn't apply just to the Rule of 80. This applies to employees who work for employers that just have normal retirement age. You are never required to retire when you hit your retirement age, whether it's a Rule of 80 age or your normal retirement age. So I get the question a lot, well, does loggers have a mandatory retirement age? And we do not. You can continue working as long as you want. Now, I know most of you on the line probably aren't interested in working into your 70s or 80s, but you certainly could if you wanted to. And obviously, every month that you work, you're earning service credit. Your benefit is growing a little more. And we've already talked about this last bullet point here, but these are your kind of guidelines for who Rule of 80 will affect and not affect. Okay, so let's shift gears here a little bit. Vesting and retirement ages are the two things you need to keep in mind as far as what you need to do to become eligible for benefits. Once you're eligible for benefits, let's talk a little bit about how we actually estimate what you're going to get in retirement. Because remember, your benefit's not based on an account balance. So it is a little bit more of an abstract idea to try and estimate what you can expect to receive from loggers. apologize, I think we lost sound there for just a second. Okay, so I'll kind of recap what I just talked about for those of you who missed that last little bit. We're looking here at our benefit formula. We've got 3 components of the formula. The first component is the benefit program. Each of your employers elects this program. They range from 1% to 2%. So if you don't know which benefit program you have, you can either ask your employer, or you can go to our website, and we have a listing on our website as well that shows you which program you have. But again, they range from 1% to 2%. We take that times the final average salary. This is basically an average, either a 3 or a 5, depending on what your employer elects, how much you make, times your years of service, and this is simply how long you've worked. So we take the benefit program your employer elected times how much you make times how long you work. And let's look at an example of this. So let's say I have an employer who has the 1.5% program, and I have a final gross monthly average salary of $3,000, and I've worked for my employer for 25 years. The calculation is fairly straightforward. We take that multiplier, 1.5%, times my salary, times my years of service, and that gives me a monthly benefit for life. Now again, doesn't matter if I live 5 years into retirement or 50 years into retirement. These are guaranteed payments that are promised to you as the member based on your service and your salary that you get every month for as long as you live. Now, as you near retirement, this calculation becomes a lot easier to be accurate because you have a pretty good idea of your service and you have a pretty good idea of what you're making. And so this calculation tends to be a lot easier to do. If you're within 5 years of retirement, you can call our office and we can send you a benefit estimate, produced from our office that's going to do these calculations for you. But what about those who are 15, 20, 25, 30 years away from retirement? This can kind of seem like a bit of an abstract thing to try and calculate and try to factor into, am I saving enough for retirement? Do I need to be saving any more? So let me show you, I think, the easiest way to just roughly ballpark what you could expect your benefit to provide for you in the future. All you have to do is take whatever your benefit multiplier is, so in this example, 1.5%, and multiply it by your years of service. Okay, so if I were to take 1.5% times my 25 years of service that I'm anticipating, that's going to give me 38%. And what that means is that my LAGERS benefit, when I apply for my benefits, will replace 38% of whatever my final average salary is at retirement. So let's change this example here really quickly just to do a couple of these so that this kind of makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to change up here. I didn't change anything except my benefit program. So let's say I work for an employer with a 2% program. If I take 2% times my $3,000 times my 25 years of service, I get my monthly benefit, $1,500 a month payable for life. But again, maybe I don't know what my salary is going to be. All I know is that I have the 2% program, and I'm just wondering what my benefit would look like if I stayed for 25 years. So if I take 2 times 25, that's going to give me 50%. So I can expect that my LAGERS benefit will pay me 50% of whatever my current salary is. You can do it on a monthly or an annual basis every month or year for as long as I live, 50%. So again, just keep in mind your benefits are designed to reflect how long you've worked. So in this example, we have 25 years. Let's say I worked for my employer, in this example, for 30 years. I could take 2 times 30, that'd give me 60% of my salary. So whatever I'm making, I'm going to get 60% of it for life. Vice versa, if I was with my employer for only 20 years, 2 times 20 is 40%. So you can kind of get the idea of an easy way to very generally ballpark what your benefit will look like, even if, like I said, you're 15, 20, 30 years out from retirement. So this is a really great tool to kind of conceptualize the value of what you're getting with this benefit. I know a lot of you on the line today work for employers that require a mandatory 4% employee contribution. So I do want to talk about this piece of it. Again, not every employer requires this, but for the ones that do, I like to talk about this because this is your money. You know, you see it coming out of your paycheck, and believe me, I've got 3 little kids at home. 4% feels like a lot coming out of a paycheck. And so I kind of want to talk about how this money works a little differently. We keep it separate from the rest of the benefit calculation and everything like that. So a couple things to keep in mind about this 4%. First and foremost, this is one of, I think, the greatest misconceptions of the LAGERS program that I hear. We send out your annual statements. They're available online now. You can get on there anytime, and you can look and see what your accumulated contribution balance is. So we keep track of that 4% for you. It goes into an account with your name on it, and your statements reflect how much you've paid into LAGERS over time. So sometimes people look at that amount and they think that somehow that's going to equate into the amount of their retirement benefit. Keep in mind that your benefit is calculated on the formula, not on an account balance. So all this 4% is doing is it's helping to offset the cost of providing this great benefit. It's helping your employer offset that cost. So this 4% does not impact the amount of the monthly benefit. Another thing that looks a little different on your LAGERS contributions as they come out of your paycheck is that these are made on an after-tax basis. So if you're contributing to a 457, those are pre-tax contributions, which means your taxable income is being reduced immediately. With LAGERS, it's not reducing your current taxable income, but when you apply for your benefits, you start receiving your benefits, a portion of your monthly benefit will not be taxable because you've already paid the tax on that 4%. Now everything else is taxable, but this 4% after-tax portion is not. Again, those contributions, that 4%, it does go into an account. We track it. That is your money. It earns interest. And no matter what happens, whether you become vested, you leave employment before becoming vested, you know, or you become vested, leave employment, and you pass away, whatever the circumstances, these contributions are guaranteed to either you or your beneficiary. There's no circumstance in LAGERS in which you could receive less than what you have paid in. So just a couple important things to keep in mind about those contributions. Okay, we've hit on the big topics. How does LAGERS work? How can I ballpark an estimate? But here are a few other questions that I get frequently when I'm out in the field meeting with folks. The first one in regards to your LAGERS benefit, I do a lot of benefits fairs, and I found I go around the state and I'm meeting with a lot of our members. And one question I get a lot is people come up to me and they'll say, Elizabeth, I know that saving for retirement is important. My LAGERS is a great start, but I know I need to supplement that savings. Can I put in an extra 2, 3, 4% into LAGERS on top of my contributions, on top of that 4%, to increase my benefit? And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but just remember that the contributions that you pay into LAGERS don't impact the monthly benefit. So the short answer to that is no. You can't contribute more into LAGERS than the 4% that's required, if it is required by your employer, because your benefit is based on how long you work, not how much you're paying into LAGERS. So that does beg the question, though, is there any way that I can increase my future retirement savings? Because I know I want to be able to retire. I want to be able to retire comfortably. There are several different ways, some involving LAGERS, some that you can do in addition to LAGERS. The first would be supplementing through a DC, that deferred compensation type plan that we were talking about at the beginning of the presentation. A lot of you have access to these sorts of plans through your employers as a public employee. A lot of you have access to 457s, which is a voluntary account that you can do through payroll deduct. And you can set those up if your employer offers that, you know, to supplement on top of your loggers, however much additional you would like to put into those plans. So that's a great option that you obviously can do. If your employer does not offer something like this, there are lots and lots of these types of plans available. You can go out into just the private market and, you know, Edward Jones or any of those financial services companies can provide these sorts of options to you as well. Now, as far as loggers is concerned, the most obvious way to increase your loggers benefit, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but it's to work longer. The longer you work, the more service credits you're earning, the bigger your benefit's going to be when you retire. I can tell you with absolute certainty that nobody has ever gotten rich from loggers for only working for 5 years in the system. It just doesn't happen that way. You've got to put in the years of service if you want the large-scale income replacement. So working longer is one option. Keep in mind, if you're delaying your retirement a few years, not only are you adding service credit, your salary may be increasing, plus you may not be dipping into some of those other retirement savings, you know, because you're continuing to work and you have that income. So a couple things to think about there. Again, if you attend one of our pre-retirement seminars or do one of our retirement planning webinars, we kind of talk about these issues of timing, working longer, taking an early retirement. We talk about all these issues in those seminars. So I would encourage you to check those out if you have time. One final thing, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it here, but I just wanted to mention it as an option because it seems like whenever I bring this up at a meeting, I always raise a couple eyebrows of folks that didn't know that this was an option. Some of you may be eligible to purchase additional service credit in loggers. There's a couple different types of service you can purchase. The easiest one is military service. If you have some military service, you can purchase up to 4 years of that time towards your loggers benefits. The other type that you can purchase, if you've worked for another public entity here in the state of Missouri, and you either weren't covered by a retirement plan or you didn't qualify for that employer's retirement plan, you might be eligible to purchase that time towards your loggers benefit as well. And in essence, you're purchasing service credit. It's kind of like working longer, except you're not actually working. You're just buying service that you've already earned somewhere else. So a couple different options. We have a lot of information on our website about that last one if you're interested in looking into that further. I will tell you, if you're new into loggers, purchasing other public employment, you do have to be vested to purchase that service, but it is much cheaper purchasing service the earlier in your career you are. So if you are new to loggers, that may be something worth looking into when you become eligible for it. One other question that I get a lot is what happens if I leave before retirement? So we live in a mobile society. A lot of people don't start and end their career with one employer, and if for whatever reason you have to leave loggers covered employment before you're age eligible to retire, you have a lot of different options with your benefits. I think one of the most unfortunate things that you know, I've come across is somebody leaves employment and they think because they didn't work until retirement age, they're just not eligible for any benefits. Or they had 8 years of service, but it was 30 years ago and they've forgotten about it, and they don't realize that they still have these benefits here. As long as you are vested, your benefit is guaranteed, whether you work until the day you retire for your loggers employer, or if you leave and you go work someplace completely different. That benefit is guaranteed for you. And you have lots and lots of different options on, do you want to go ahead and take that benefit out? Do you want to take a refund? Do you want to defer that retirement until retirement age? There are so many different options here that I really encourage you. What I want you to take away from this presentation is that there's no one cookie cutter answer. A lot of people think I've been paying 4% in for 8 years. I'm just going to take a refund of that 4% and move on with my life. For some of you that may be a good option, but for others that may not be the most financially beneficial thing for you to do with your benefit. So if you find yourself in this position, ask those questions. Don't just assume that you have to take a refund and move on with your life. You have more options. I do a webinar specifically on this topic, so I would really encourage you to attend that if this is something that you're thinking about in the future. I want to spend the last few minutes here today kind of stepping back from the benefit and doing something that maybe we haven't talked about in these one-on-one presentations before. But I think especially from an employee standpoint, understanding the bigger picture of your logger's benefit as far as your total compensation at your employer is concerned is a really, really important thing. So again, we've kind of been talking throughout this presentation about loggers replacing income, about ballparking what your income replacement is going to be. And so I kind of want to look at an example here to just see how your benefit fits into the greater retirement picture, your greater retirement plan. So in this example, we're looking at an individual who has roughly $56,000 annual salary pre-retirement. So they're still working, they're getting ready to retire. And if you remember back to that example that we did on the first page with the 1.5% program and the 25 years of service, that individual was going to get 38% of their final average salary for life from loggers. So we would be replacing almost 40% of this income with the loggers benefit. Now each of you as you're retiring, everyone who retires, the ultimate goal is to replace income. You want to replace the income that you're earning while you work with retirement income. So for this example, let's say this individual is shooting to replace 80% of their pre-retirement salary. Now for some of you, 80% might be right on target. For some, you may need more. For others, you may need less. This is kind of an individual conversation that you want to have. How much do I need to meet my retirement goals? But if you look at this, the loggers portion of this individual's benefit is going to get them almost halfway to that 80% mark that they're trying to achieve. And again, this is permanent guaranteed income, fixed income that is not impacted in any way by market swings or anything like that. So this is money that you can count on in retirement. Now the additional between your loggers and where you want to be, that's going to be made up with your Social Security benefit if you're eligible for Social Security and your personal savings. Now if you have not been on the Social Security website, I would really encourage you to check that out as well. You can create your account, you can go in, and if you have enough credits to qualify for Social Security benefits, they do estimates for you so you can get a pretty good idea of what can I expect from Social Security. You can ballpark your loggers, and you can get a really good feel for where am I as far as my retirement goals. So anything that Social Security and loggers does not cover, you would want to make up for with personal savings. Now again, the longer you work in loggers, the greater your benefit's going to be. You know, if my loggers replaced 50% of my final average salary, Social Security and my personal savings would have to be a little bit less. If my loggers replaced say 25%, then Social Security and my personal savings is going to need to replace a little bit more. So just kind of keep this idea in mind as you're planning for retirement and trying to understand how loggers fits into the bigger picture of the benefit. So let's actually put some numbers to this benefit. You know, we've been talking about income replacement the whole time. I think that's a really great way to think about it. But I think so often, and I find this especially for employees who don't contribute anything to their benefit. They don't see anything coming out of their paycheck for it, and it's really easy to forget about your loggers benefit. It's there. I hear it all the time, especially from my younger generation. It's like, yeah, I know loggers is there. I don't need to worry about it. You know, there's no real understanding of the value of what you're earning there. So I want to just put some numbers to it so you can I can demonstrate you know, what you actually get over your lifetime from these benefits. So again, let's look at this employee that has approximately $56,000 a year final average salary, 25 years of service, the L7 benefit program. And I'll throw another wrench in here. Let's say this individual was contributory. So again, not to pick on the younger folks on the line, but I hear the most grumbling about that 4% contribution from individuals who are a long way from retirement. They've got bigger plans for that 4%, and they don't want to have to contribute it. And I just want to give you a little perspective on what that 4% is going to get you over the long haul. So let's say this individual is contributing their 4%. So over 25 years, this is how much would come out of your paycheck in this scenario to fund your retirement benefits. Now, in 20 years of retirement, let's say you retire at age 60 and you live until age 80. Under this scenario with the L7 25 years of service and a $56,000 final average salary, this individual is going to get, you know, just over $400,000 paid out to them over the course of their retirement. I don't know about you, but I plan to live past 80 in retirement. I hope everybody on the line has the opportunity to do that as well. So let's just look at another example and say that I'm assuming I'm going to live until 90, and I'm going to draw my loggers benefit for 30 years. Look at how much this benefit is worth now in this example, over $600,000. On top of that, your loggers benefit pays cost of living adjustments, which aren't factored into these examples here. So these numbers are probably on the conservative side because I get my cost of living adjustments every year, which are actually going to make these numbers much larger than what they are here. So I know that, you know, $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month may not sound like a whole lot, but when you look at it over the course of retirement, this is a big benefit. And if you're paying in, this is all it costs you. And so kind of keep this in mind, you know, when you're thinking about the benefits and trying to figure out how much it's going to accrue. The lifetime benefits, when you put numbers to them, can be pretty impressive. And the greatest thing about that is that this is guaranteed money. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to invest it. It is there for you as long as you put those years of service in with your employer. One last thing I want to leave you with today is disability and survivor benefits. I know I mentioned right at the beginning that Loggers provides disability, survivor, and retirement benefits to members. And most people, when they think about their Loggers benefit, they think about the retirement aspect of it because that's the biggest piece of it. Loggers does also provide to every single member, every person on the line with me today has these benefits already. Disability and survivor benefits are available to all Loggers members. I'm not going to talk a lot about how they work today, but if this is kind of a first exposure for Loggers, the most important thing that I want you to remember about these benefits is that they're there for you. That if you are to become permanently disabled or if you were to pass away, your spouse or dependent children may be eligible for some death or disability benefits. Disability benefits are payable for life, and the survivor benefits to a spouse would be payable for your spouse's lifetime. So these are potentially tremendous benefits that would be available either to you or a loved one. We hope nobody ever has to use these, but with a lot of other retirement plans, all you get is the retirement piece of it. And so it's easy to forget about these extra benefits that you have. So I always encourage folks to take your statement or a Loggers brochure or something and stick it in with all those important documents, your life insurance policies, all your retirement plans documents, and have that there. In the event that something happens, there's something there to spark you know, your memory that, hey, I've got these extra benefits, I need to check into applying for them. So we don't ever want a benefit being foregone just because you forgot that you have it. So keep that in mind, that these are just additional awesome benefits that you have available to you as well. One more thing I'm going to leave you with here today. We think we've covered everything that we wanted to kind of hit on as far as just the big topics of LAGERS. Keep in mind, LAGERS has lots of resources available to our members. The webinars, we've got a lot of new webinar topics coming out over the course of the next 12 months. So check up on our website. If you can't make it to a pre-retirement seminar, we have webinars that are going to cover all those topics. Like I said, disability and survivor benefits, separating from LAGERS employment, all topics that we have specific webinars for if you're looking for a little bit more detail on those. So really encourage you to check those out as well. Also have our website. There's a tremendous amount of information available on our website. If you've never been on your MyLAGERS account, this button right here on our website, if you've never been on before, just click on it and there's an Enroll Now button. You can hit that button. So much you can do on here. You can create benefit estimates. If the whole estimating your benefit intimidates you, you can get on your MyLAGERS account. You can create your own benefit estimates from there. If you're interested in purchasing service, something else you can do on MyLAGERS. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do on there. So really encourage you all to check that out as well. As always, make sure you like us on social media, follow us on Twitter. Something else that we have new, we've started a blog. You can get to it from our homepage. I am loving our blog for the reason that we have another opportunity to address some of those tough questions that maybe it's sometimes hard to just put up on an informational website. A lot of questions that we're getting from pre-retirement seminars or from new employee orientations. We're trying to answer some of those questions in easy to understand ways for you, so that's out there and available for you as well. So again, I just encourage you to check that out on our website. And as always, give our office a call if you have any other questions. I'm going to hang on the line for just a couple minutes to answer any last few questions that come in. But otherwise, I thank you all for stopping by today, and have a good afternoon.